Alright, I am back with another build, and this is a build request. YouTube user Lion Jones, or @Ron, asked me to do a skill monkey build which is viable in combat. And I was happy to oblige. This build is honestly fairly simple. It wasn't that hard to figure out how to get all skill proficiencies in the lowest levels possible. So the main thing was figuring out how to get the combat viability on top of it. And I think I've come up with an interesting solution. However, this video is going to be slightly different. And you'll see why in a minute, but let's just get straight into it. First things first, two of the most important things you need to do is you need to pick Githyanki as your race. I know I said in the Psionic Warrior video that I didn't really like the Githyanki because of the way they looked, but honestly, they've kind of grown on me, and I don't know why. And actually, they're slowly starting to become one of my favorite playable races in this game. I can't explain it, but I just really like them. I've made some sort of Colonel Sanders looking guy here, who I've named Cornelius Codswallop, the greatest detective of the Sword Coast. It's super dumb, but I like it. Anyways, so with this, you want to play a Githyanki specifically because they're going to get the racial ability Astral Knowledge, which gives you proficiencies in all skills of a chosen ability, so that being Int, Wisdom, Charisma, etc., until your next long rest. So immediately you're getting an entire category of skills right from your racial pick. Amazing. Definitely required for this build. Second is the background. You're going to need to take the, I believe it is the Entertainer background, which is going to give you acrobatics and performance. It's a little bit tricky to naturally get acrobatics through racial and through class proficiencies. So this is a nice, easy way to get it, and getting performance on top of it is also quite nice. I also went with the Entertainer background because it's quite a fun background roleplay-wise because of the way you get inspiration. So I found it to be pretty cool with kind of a goofy character such as Cornelius Codswallop. So definitely a fun way to go. So absolutely a Githyanki Entertainer. That's the way you want to go. We'll come back to this slot in a second. Obviously, if you're playing any skill monkey build, you would be, well, stupid not to take Rogue. Because with this, you're going to get 4 proficiencies right off the bat, which is immediately going to cover, like an entire class of skills here. You're going to take Deception, Intimidation, and Persuasion, along with Stealth. We already get performance, so with Deception, Intimidation, Performance, and Persuasion, we've already covered all of Charisma, which means we don't need to ever use our Astral Knowledge for it. And with Stealth, we are already covering one of 3 Dexterity skills, the final 2 of which we'll be able to get quite... Well, we already have Acrobatics, so the final one we're going to be able to get quite easily. So yeah, basically, you want to take Deception, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Stealth, Acrobatics and Performance from your background, Githyanki is your race, Rogue is your starting class. As far as your stats, I need to make this clear because people keep saying it. I keep getting these comments on every single one of my builds, and this is totally understandable, that a lot of my builds are not viable to actually play through the game with in the state that I present them. That is true. The idea is that I am presenting the final stats and the final equipment for the build. Actually play through the game and use your better judgment and respec when you get the necessary equipment. That is the whole point of these builds. I'm not trying to call anybody out here by saying this, it's just this is a repeating theme I'm seeing in the comments of a lot of my builds, so I want to make it clear, Withers is your best friend. Respec when it feels appropriate for you. Don't run with these stats throughout the whole thing. I said it in my very first build video, I've reiterated it a couple of times in other videos and the comments, but I'm making it clear. I'm going to have to put some sort of maybe like small disclaimer video on my channel just to say, hey, this is how every build on my channel works, and go from there. But I'm wasting time. We've gone over the first level. Right, next up, we are going with... I mean, you all will have seen this coming a mile away. We're jumping into Cleric, and we're taking the Knowledge Domain. As for your cantrips, you're going to want to take Guidance, Resistance, and Thaumaturgy. This is going to buff all of your social skills and even your saving throws quite nicely. Knowledge Domain, as we said. Your deity can be whatever you like. It really doesn't matter. If you want to go with something like that's like the God of Knowledge or whatever, because we're taking so many skills, you could go with Ogma or Mistra. If you're leaning more into kind of the entertainer aspect, I think there's one here for that, but I'm not going to go into this too deeply. I'm just going to pick Ogma and move on. You do get 2 skill proficiencies here, but they're not actually really that necessary because we're going to be covering it with our astral knowledge and the ability we get at the 2nd level of Cleric. So pick whatever you like here. I like to take Arcana and Religion. I just feel like it fits here, but regardless, that's what we're going to get. As for your spells, it really doesn't matter. I will recommend Bless, though. Extra d4 to attack rolls and saving throws is always really nice. It's a good team-wide buff. You can also go for Shield of Faith to buff your armor class by 2. This is optional, but it's just a nice utility spell to have. Bane is the opposite of Bless, but for your enemies. And take whatever you like. Guiding Bolt if you want a good ranged attack roll and to have advantage on your next attack roll against it. Inflict Wounds to just do necrotic damage in melee range. And Create or Destroy Water if you have an ally, or maybe even yourself, depending on how you build this, can use lightning damage. So take your favorite here. I'm going to pick Guiding Bolt. Next up at Cleric level 2, we're getting what we are here for. We are getting our Channel Divinity ability, which is Knowledge of the Ages. Gain proficiency of all skills of a chosen ability until your next long rest. This is the exact same as our Githyanki ability Astral Knowledge, except we get it as a class feature here, which means we're going to be able to cover 2 categories of skills by level 3. So this means, I guess in this case, we could use Intelligence, because I think has the most skills. But yep, so you're going to want to take this here. As a racial feature, we're going to get Enhanced Sleep here, which is really, really nice. So definitely want to grab that. For some reason, with every level of Cleric, you can switch up your deity, and I have no idea why. I just think that's funny. We'll stick with Ogma. You do get an extra spell here. Take literally whatever you want. It does not matter. I would say Sanctuary is actually a really, really nice kind of safety net spell to use in a lot of situations, so I would grab this here. Next up, at Total Level 4, we are going to be multiclassing one final time, and I think the option we've gone with might surprise you. We're actually going to be taking a level of Ranger here. This is going to give us a couple of things. One, a favoured enemy type. We're going to take the Ranger Knight. This will give us proficiency in history, which, sure, we're going to be getting that either way, it doesn't really matter, but it also gives you heavy armor proficiency. By taking Ranger Knight, Ranger, I guess, as a multi-class, you are now going to be proficient with all simple weapons, all martial weapons, all forms of armor, and shields. So not only is this a skill proficiency build, this is a weapon and armor proficiency build. We're getting everything here. Next up, we're going to be going for Natural Explorer, and we're going to be taking Urban Tracker. This is going to give us the Sleight of Hand proficiency for free, rounding out our dexterity options. So now we've completed Dex. And lastly, we also get, for multiclassing into Ranger, 1 free skill in anything we choose. We're going to take Athletics, which means we've covered the final section, which is Strength, as there's only 1 Strength skill in the game, which means by Total Level 4, with your Astral Knowledge, Knowledge of the Ages, and your multiclassing options, you have attained skill proficiency in every single skill in the game by level 4. Which means that's the build. So yeah, normally with these build videos, I would take it all the way to level 12. But honestly, I don't feel the need to do that here. Because I feel like the interesting thing with this build is once you've reached total level 4, I mean, you've already got some interesting options here in terms of, you know, abilities. And this will be able to, I think, get you through the early game quite nicely, especially with teammates. So I feel like this build is okay on its own. But obviously now you have 8 levels to do whatever you want. So as far as making this a combat viable skill build, the fact that we've managed to get every single proficiency in the game pretty much aside from the saving throws, your options are limitless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the equipment now, because I feel like having proficiency in all skills is nice, but if you don't have the stats to back them up, there's not really much of a point. So let's get to the equipment. I have decided to just go absolute balls to the wall and just use all the statistic boosting equipment here. So let's go over our equipment quickly. the Warped Headband of Intellect. This will set the wearer's intelligence score to 17. So we have 17 intelligence without any investment. This is a +3 to all of our checks with that skill. The Cloak of Protection, extra saving throw and armor class, not bad. The Armor of Agility, because we took Ranger Knight, we get to wear heavy armor, so this is an interesting little piece of kit. Adds your Dexterity modifier to your armor class and does not impose disadvantage on stealth checks. So it's a free 17 AC medium armor. I thought this was heavy armor. I've just read that that's medium armor. My mistake. So technically you don't need to take Ranger Knight, but if you want heavy armor proficiency, take Ranger Knight anyway. You also get +2 to all saving throws, which is really, really nice. So this means with our armor, it's going to be giving us a ton of AC, which is nice. Gloves of Dexterity sets the Dexterity score to 18 and gives us +1 to attack rolls. Literally cannot go wrong with it. The Evasive Shoes, we get a +1 to Acrobatics and a +1 to Armor class here. Great. Nice, nice, nice. Amulet of Greater Health sets Constitution to 23 and advantage on Constitution saving throws. Awesome. Ring of Protection, +1 Armor class and saving throws. And the last one, this is going to be specific to the strategy I'm going to be showing in a minute. This is the Risky Ring. You get advantage on attack rolls, but receive disadvantage on saving throws. So the saving for proficiency we get here kind of gets cancelled out, but you still get regular Constitution saving for proficiency. But you can obviously swap this out for whatever you like. I also kind of like the Ring of Evasion here. When you fail a Dexterity saving throw, you can use a reaction to succeed instead. Obviously, use your best judgment here and use whatever ring slots you like until you get the rings you want. I'm going to be keeping the Risky Ring on. So let's move over to the weapons here. And this is more or less going to be focused on my specific version of the combat viabilities part of this build. So let's have a look at it. We're going to be using the Club of Hill Giant Strength, which is going to set our strength to 19. Now, obviously, as a primary weapon, this thing kind of sucks. I mean, yes, it gives us 19 strength, which is awesome, but it's also a 1d4 of damage. So while you definitely want to keep this on your build, you're probably not going to want to use it as your primary weapon, so I'm going to be showing some options to be able to get around this. Next up is the Shield of Devotion. We get shield proficiency for free, so there's no reason not to take a +2 to our armor class and whatever bonuses we can get. This one gives us an extra level 1 spell slot, the Shield Bash ability, which most shields have, and the ability to cast Aid as a level 3 spell for free, giving us 10 extra HP to our whole team, I believe? I'm not sure. So, yeah. But you can put any shield you want here. I mean, Vicona's Walking Fortress, the legendary shield, will give you +3, but I decided to go with something a little bit easier to get here. So in total, we have 26 AC, the highest AC on any build I've ever done. 17 from armor, 4 from dexterity, 2 from our shield, and 3 from our ring, cloak, and shoes. Altogether, a very, very tanky build. And so now I'm going to get into the ranged weapons. I'm using dual crossbows here, the same from my Dante setup, because the way I think that you could go about making this build combat efficient is by going the Sharpshooter fighter rogue route. The way I'm going to do this kind of video is I'm not actually going to show all the leveling up, but I am going to have some text on the screen that is going to give you tell you everything you need to know about the build. Across all of the builds I'm going to kind of talk about over the next few minutes, your first ability score improvement is going to be a bump to Charisma and a bump to Wisdom, using Auntie Ethel's Boon to push your Wisdom to 18. So in total, your stats will be 19 Strength, 18 Dex, 23 Constitution, 17 Intelligence, 18 Wisdom, 18 Charisma. That is, at minimum, I believe, a base, a +7 to all of your proficiencies at this level. Obviously, once you reach max level, your proficiency bonus will have gone up. So I think with expertise, the highest proficiency bonus you'll get is 11, and the lowest is going to be 7 or 8ish. So really, this build, you're going to be able to do every skill check in the game, no problem. In fact, let me just cast the Astral Knowledges, because I forgot to. We want Intelligence. And we want Wisdom. Alright, now taking a look at our stats. Okay, this is a visual bug. You'll see here that for some reason when you use Knowledge of the Ancients, on Wisdom, for some reason, it doesn't show in the menu that you have the proficiencies. You do. I don't know why it's not showing it here. I think you can overcome this bug by doing it the opposite way. Go Knowledge of the Ancients, Intelligence, Astral Knowledge, Wisdom. Just play around with it a bit and see what happens. But yeah, it's a weird visual bug. Honestly, Larian really needs to fix this. But otherwise, you do have proficiency in every single skill. So I'm pretty sure I've had the text up on screen for the Sharpshooter build. Basically, you go take 3 levels of Rogue to get Thief for the extra bonus action, and then go 6 levels of Fighter for 2 feats, one of which being our ability score improvement, and the second one being Sharpshooter. That's why we're wearing the Risky Ring for this specific example, because gaining advantage on every single one of your attack rolls, in addition to the Archery fighting style, is basically going to completely negate the negative penalty from Sharpshooter. I will also be playing some combat footage, I believe, to at the end of this video, like I always do, and this is the build that I have in action, and you will see it absolutely eviscerates. So you're not really sacrificing any of your combat capability for power and skill proficiencies here. I think, in my personal opinion, and this is just my opinion, this is probably the best way to go. Obviously, it comes with the caveat of disadvantage on saving throws, which can be very, very, you know, risky, as per the name of the ring. So I will be going over some alternate options. If you want to be a melee fighter, but you don't want to give up the Club of Hill Giant Strength, you can go for an open hand monk. Just take all of the rest of your 8 levels in this class, and this will use the club as a monk weapon, bumping it up to a total of a d6, which is a little bit better, but also enabling the use of your monk abilities, such as, you know, your unarmed strikes, your flurry of blows, your extra unarmed attack as a bonus action, your manifestation of mind, body, and soul. You can use wholeness of body to get an extra bonus action and keep up that pressure. Definitely a good option here. I would also recommend for going more levels into Ranger. You can either go Gloomstalker if you want that Dread Ambusher and a bunch of stealth attacks if you want to play the stealth ranged aspect of this build, in which case you could take Sharpshooter again. That would also work. Or you could go for maybe a Beastmaster Ranger, in which you and your companion are able to impose advantage that way. And, you know, you have an extra body, an extra bit of tankiness, an extra bit of attack. I actually think Beastmaster Ranger is pretty fun in this game, so you could go with that. You could go for any of the spellcasting classes. You could go Warlock, you could go Cleric, you could go Wizard, you could go Sorcerer. Basically just building full spellcasters in any of those builds. Again, just making sure you grab those ability score improvements. Definitely worth it. Basically, your methods for this build are pretty much endless. You could do anything. Use your greater imagination. Like I say, the main build I provided at the start of this video is the way I would personally do it, and it's the way I found to be the most fun, especially when I'm kind of going with the character theme of this like roguish investigator detective type with good old Cornelius Codswell up here. I mean, you can look at the saving throws here. I mean, yes, you're having disadvantage on these, but the fact that you get like at the least +7, which will be higher when you actually have the stats, to a max of +10, like, I honestly cannot see... I feel like I say this with a lot of my builds, but legitimately, in terms of playing Baldur's Gate 3, and such, you're taking into account skill checks, conversations, dialogue, well, I just said the same thing twice, and combat. This could be the ultimate build. It genuinely could be. And that's... because it does everything in the game. And I mean everything. So I definitely think that this build is going to be... I mean, it's a cheat code. It's actually a cheat code. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to play a Githyanki, this does create a bit of difficulty. I mean, I would still take the same levels and everything. You're just going to have to kind of choose with your knowledge of the ages if you want to go intelligence or wisdom. It's hard to say exactly what the best options would be if you didn't go Githyanki. I could see... I mean, I guess at that point, if you don't go Githyanki, you'll have to put points into Bard and go College of Law to get those extra skill proficiencies. But if you don't care about getting athletics and acrobatics, you can actually ignore those and just go for the other stuff. But Yeah, I mean, I think I've rambled on long enough. I think I've presented a really good option for making a skill monkey build that is combat viable. So thank you to Lion Jones for the build request. It was actually quite interesting to Fairycraft. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave this one here. I will see you all next time.